The neon signs of Port Zalara flickered against the eternal twilight of the station's artificial sky. James wiped down the counter of his food truck, though calling it a truck was generous. The Wandering Spoon was a repurposed cargo shuttle, barely 15 meters long, with a kitchen crammed into what used to be the holding bay and a serving window cut into the starboard hull. Another slow night, Orla muttered, counting the meager credits on her datapad. She was James's business partner, a sharp-eyed woman with auburn hair tied back in a practical bun. They'd bought the shuttle together 3 years ago with dreams of serving Earth cuisine across the galaxy. Reality had been less romantic. "We'll manage," James said, though his voice lacked conviction. The rent on their docking bay was due in 2 days, and they were short, again. As Orla locked up the storage units, a sound echoed through the empty market square, a wet, hacking cough that rattled like stones in a tin can. James peered into the shadows between 2 cargo containers. There, curled against the cold metal, was a Dracor. James had seen Dracors before. Everyone had. They were one of the galaxy's elder species, massive reptilian beings who'd mastered interstellar flight when humans were still banging rocks together. This one was different. His scales, which should have shimmered with chromatic pride, were dull and flaking. His wings, capable of carrying him through zero gravity with grace, were folded tight against his emaciated frame. One eye was milky with age. "James, don't," Orla warned. "We barely have enough for ourselves." But James was already ladling soup into their largest container, a mixing bowl, really. He'd made chicken noodle soup, his grandmother's recipe, adapted for the protein synths they could afford. It wasn't fancy, but it was hot and filling. He approached carefully. Dracors weren't dangerous, not really. But a starving animal was unpredictable regardless of species. "Hey there, friend," James said softly. "You look like you could use a meal." The Dracor's good eye focused on him. When he spoke, his voice was the rumble of distant thunder, accented with the clicks and hisses of his native tongue breaking through the translator. "Human. I have no credits. No trade. Didn't ask for any." James set the bowl down and placed a spoon beside it, though he realized immediately that the Dracor's claws couldn't hold it. "Sorry, I guess you can just—" The Dracor lowered his massive head to the bowl and drank. For a moment, there was only the sound of eating, desperate and grateful. When he finished, he looked up at James with something like wonder. "I'm called Zarathan the Wise," he said, "though wisdom did not prevent me from losing everything. My horde, my position, my clan." He gestured with a wing at his surroundings. 3 cycles I have been here. You are the first to offer kindness without expectation of return. This is uncommon," James shrugged. "Where I'm from, you don't let people go hungry if you can help it. Your world must be paradise." "Not even close," James laughed bitterly. "But we try." Over the next week, James fed Zarathan every night. Orla protested at first, but even she softened when she saw the old Dracor's strength returning. He told them stories of the galaxy before humans had left Earth, of civilizations that had risen and fallen, of the unwritten rules that governed the spaces between stars. On the 8th night, Zarathan didn't come. James felt an unexpected pang of worry. He'd grown fond of the old dragon's rumbling voice and archaic mannerisms. When their shift ended, he and Orla searched the station's lower levels. They found him in Docking Bay 7, standing before their Wandering Spoon with 3 other Dracors, younger, their scales brilliant in the harsh lights. "James, Orla." Zarathan's voice carried a formality it hadn't before. "I present my granddaughter Tasala, my nephew Vorkith, and Counselor Mirzan of the Dracor Trade Consortium." The counselor stepped forward, her silver scales marking her as someone important. "Zarathan the Wise was declared lost to us 2 years ago. We believed him dead. Instead, he tells us he was saved by humans who fed him without asking his name or status." She tilted her head in a gesture James had learned meant respect. "This is behavior we thought extinct in the galaxy. We just did what was right," Orla said quietly. "Precisely." Mirzan tapped her datapad, and James's tablet chimed. His eyes widened at the number. "This is the finder's fee for a consortium elder, plus restitution for care rendered. Additionally, Zarathan has invoked the law of open hearth, an ancient debt between our people." Zarathan stepped forward. "You fed me when I had nothing. By our oldest traditions, I am bound to ensure you never hunger again." The consortium is awarding you the food service contract for this entire station, and 3 others. If you accept, you will also have priority bidding on all future contracts in this sector. James couldn't speak. Orla's hand found his, squeezing tight. But more than this, Zarathan continued, his good eye gleaming. You reminded me that the measure of a species is not in their technology or their conquest, but in their compassion when compassion costs them something. 3 months later, the Wandering Spoon had become a fleet of 5 ships. James and Orla hired staff, designed new menus, and expanded to stations across the sector. But every night on the flagship vessel, they kept one bowl of soup aside, because Zarathan came by every week, sometimes with business partners, sometimes alone. And every time James served him personally, refusing payment. Some traditions, he'd learned, were worth more than credits, and some nights, when the old Dracor settled in for a long conversation, James would catch Orla smiling and think, maybe we did make paradise after all. One bowl at a time,